I'd also like to recognize the large number of Business Council members we have with us. I'll just read down my list. We've got Steve Osborne, Mark Spurgeon, Ryan Kopis, Mike Hayes, Tim Dolan, Brooks Brown, Tom Hershaway, Tom Cook, Ryan Toll, Nick Abernathy, and Jerry Houston. Thank you all for being with us today. I'd also just like to take a brief moment and point out our city officials with us that are here today. We've got Councilman Rick Stewart and Councilman Zach Clevenger. Thank you for being with us. Now I'm going to give Mr. Jason Holmes an opportunity to tell us a little bit about Harvest Productions.
Jason Holmes, I'm the Vice President of Integration with Harvest Productions. We'd like to thank you guys for coming today to the luncheon. We're really glad that we're able to have the facility that we purchased a couple years ago to be able to hold these type of events. So we thank you guys for coming out. Actually, what I'm going to do is I am going to introduce our Vice President of Events. Her name is Jess Hagan, and she's going to come up and she's actually going to tell you guys a little bit about what we here at Harvest have going on and some different events and things that are happening. So.
Thanks for passing the buck, Jason. Welcome again to Harvest. We're glad to have you. Look forward to meeting all of you and learning more about your businesses. Just a little bit about Harvest Productions. We've been in this building for about 2 years. We do a few events a year. We do about 900 events across Kansas City, nationwide, and globally. In 2016, we're looking at developing and growing part of our business. And we currently have our event management, we have sound production and lighting, and we oversee some events such as Plaza Lighting Ceremony, the TEDxKC, the Plaza Art Fair. We are in-house at Bartle Hall and also Kaufman Performing Arts Center. But one piece of business that we're looking at in 2016, and just like you all do with your clients, you're always finding ways where you can help them and grow them and find new opportunities for your business. One of those ways we're going to do that in 2016 is through starting experiential marketing and sponsor integration. So we have a lot of different events, and we have sponsors that want to access those attendees and those event goers. Advertising is changing, obviously, in this world in terms of Pandora, Spotify, you have DVR on TV, and so sponsors want to integrate with those attendees, and what we're doing is helping place those sponsors in events that make sense for the sponsors, make sense for the event goers. So we're looking at that for 2016 and really excited about it. We've had some success with it this Q4, and so that's a big push for us for 2016. Along with experiential marketing and our event management and our production services, we're also looking at destination management services, and that's helping to showcase Kansas City when conventions come here, when conferences come here. How can we help with those destination management services and also showcase Kansas City? So we're partnering with the CDA, we're working with Bartle Hall, we're working with some clients that have asked us to do that. An example would be if a client comes to Kansas City and they're doing a large conference and they want us to have, to host a scavenger hunt team building in downtown Kansas City. We can put that together from start to finish. So those are a couple of things that we're looking at 2016. We're very excited about it, and it's a little bit of who we are and what we do. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let Ron or myself or Jason or any of our team members here know. But thank you again for coming. Enjoy this lunch, and hope to visit with you all today. So thank you.
Thank you, Jess. I'd now like to introduce our speaker today. Danan Hughes played for the Kansas City Chiefs from 1993 to 1998, primarily as a wide receiver and occasionally as a kick returner. Originally from New Jersey, Danan played college football at the University of Iowa, and in addition to representing the Chiefs, Danan is currently employed by Benefit Packaging and Display out of Lee Summit, where he resides with his wife, Tiffany, and 5 awesome children. please help me introduce Danan Hughes.
Well, good afternoon. It's always fun to come to an event. Anything associated with Thanksgiving is always cool to me. And anything associated with Thanksgiving and food and Thanksgiving food is really cool to me. So I appreciate the meal was awesome. I'm still working on it, so that's cool. I also am definitely fortunate to obviously come here, but I have an announcement to make. The person who just introduced me, Brian Hughes, and I have this letter. Brian, you are not the father. You are not my father. There's never been a time I've been introduced by someone with Hughes as the last name, so I've been holding that in for many years, just to get that response. But thank you for that introduction, and thanks for the opportunity to come and chat with you guys. Obviously, this is better times. I know there's always an opportunity during these luncheons and speaking engagements where people have to get back to work and you start walking out right around me. So I'll be cognizant of the time, but I'm happy with the Chiefs' recent winning streak that nobody's leaving right now. That's pretty cool because I probably would have. But it's been fun to watch the Chiefs get better all season long. And just to kind of give you a little bit more of my background, born and raised in New Jersey, 5 minutes from New York City. Got a chance, played all sports growing up, got a chance to, for a scholarship to play 2 sports. I actually played college baseball and college football, and went out to the University of Iowa, got off the plane and said, what in the world did I just get myself into? And it was a great, probably the greatest, one of the greatest decisions I ever made was to go to the University of Iowa. I was fortunate that amongst the several schools that recruited me, they were promising that I could play both sports, and that was pretty much the deal maker for me. Baseball is my first love, still is my first love, but I played professional football, also played professional baseball. I played 3 years at Iowa and got drafted in the 3rd round to play with the Milwaukee Brewers. I signed, played 2 years with the Brewers, and in between seasons went back and played football at Iowa. And then got a chance, after that, played minor league baseball in Helena, Montana. Got an opportunity to see a lot of great parts of the country that I would have never seen had I not played baseball. And then the Chiefs came calling and drafted me, and I had probably one of the biggest decisions I ever had to make in my life is to walk away from a game that I loved to a game that I really liked. And I say that because going to Iowa probably turned the tide a little bit because 72, 75,000 strong every single game, no other pro team in the state, everything's about the Hawkeyes, can kind of change your mind, can brainwash you a little bit. So, and then also had some aggression issues, I'll be honest. Football, I became a football player. Growing up, I was a baseball player who happened to play football. And then as I got indoctrinated into the culture at Iowa, I became a football player playing baseball. So I would be in center field screaming, hit him! Don't look at my picture like that. I realized I either need to go to counseling or I need to go play football. So I had the opportunity, the Chiefs drafted me. I actually broke my foot in the All-Star games, went back and played spring baseball and rehab, and then the Chiefs called. And what I was supposed to be was a 2nd round pick, wound up being a 7th round pick, and actually got drafted on crutches. I had foot surgery 2 days before the draft. I broke my foot in January. The doctors had said, let it heal. And then the week of the draft, they said, you need to get surgery now so that teams know you got surgery. So literally 48 hours before the draft, I was on the surgery table getting screws put in my foot. And then the announcement went out by my agent to tell the teams, hey, he's on the mend, everything is good. So the Chiefs drafted me, and I automatically, people talk about being nervous when you go to training camp. I don't know if I was naive or dumb. Scratch that, I hope I'm not dumb. But I assumed that if you were drafted by the team that you automatically made the team. Nobody told me any different. I didn't grow up around pro athletes, didn't grow up around college athletes, inner city kid. So I just assumed, well, they drafted me, I must have made the team. So I was probably the most relaxed player in rookie history in training camp. And it actually allowed me just to kind of exhale and just be an athlete out there once I got back up to full speed. I remember two things that I think to this day helped me make the team as a rookie. One, I got in a fight the first practice with Dale Carter, who was an all-pro corner who became one of my good friends and obviously teammates for 6 years. And then I had one play where I ran a reverse. We were playing at New England, my rookie season in the preseason. Hadn't done much the whole preseason. Got a reverse and ran it for like 30, 40-something yards. And I think those are the only two things that got me on the team. I was on practice squad for the first 10 weeks of that season. I was a kick returner. Never in my life had I punt returned. I kick returned at Iowa, wide receiver. And then the 10th game of the season, week 10, we're playing Buffalo Bills here, Monday Night Football. And one of our receivers gets his nose broken, and they activate me from practice squad and said, Danny, can you catch punts? I said, yes. Never did it. In my head, I said, never did it, but I'm figuring this out. On Monday Night Football, made my debut of punt returning, and that was the first punt I ever caught in my life. Thankfully, I caught it. Or otherwise, you would have a different speaker. And so from there on, I had never played special teams. I was a very physical receiver. So I liked the contact. I liked hitting people. There was times where I felt like an extended lineman. And I played a lot in the run game. So we had great running backs, Marcus Allen and Greg Hill, and a lot of great players. And we ran the ball a lot with Marty Schottenheimer's offense. So I got a lot of playing time. And then I became one of the special teams knuckleheads, where I bought into this kamikaze mentality of running full speed into people, 40 yards downfield, just to do it again after a score. Not the sharpest pencil in the box. But it was fun to me. Multiple concussions, multiple injuries, all that stuff. I chalk a lot of it up to the game. That's what I signed on for. But great memories nonetheless. Marty was a great coach, great experience playing 6 years. My rookie year, I was drafted with Will Shields. Will was the 3rd round pick, and I was the 7th. We traded our first 2 picks, the 1st and 2nd round, for Joe Montana. So he came along, and then we also had Marcus Allen. So my rookie year, I got to come in as first-year players with 3 future Hall of Famers, and then obviously played with Derek Thomas and several other guys, Willie Rofe, and several guys that I played. So I've been very, very blessed throughout my career, especially from the football perspective, and who I was associated with, the winning times that we had back in Arrowhead when it was Terrorhead and no one came in and beat us. And we've gone through some trying times since. Sad to say, I was on the last team that won a playoff game and the last team that won a home playoff and an away playoff game, and that was my rookie year. So hopefully they're on the right road now. It's going to be an uphill battle this year, but it's great. It's fun to watch, and when you consider what the Royals have accomplished over the last 2 years, it kind of gives you a lot of encouragement about what can happen across the parking lot with the Chiefs. But literally every given Sunday, any given Sunday, anything can happen. We've seen it. Cincinnati Bengals last week lose to Houston Texans, and the Packers lose 2 in a row, and the Broncos, we don't talk about them really. And then the Raiders and what's going on with San Diego this week. So there's a bright future out there for the Chiefs. There's some good things that are happening. They're healthy. And what I do now also at Bennett Packaging, I am working in the corrugate industry, so boxes, displays, all that stuff. I'm in sales, and that's been a blessing. But one of the other things that I've done since I retired from football is I've been in television. So I do a lot of games. I do college football, college baseball, college basketball for the Big Ten Network, ESPN3, and then obviously here with the Chiefs, I do a pregame and postgame show. So I've been very fortunate to still have that one foot in the locker room, still talk sports. It's basically the same conversation I would have with any of you on any given day, and now I get to do it in front of a camera. I get to piss people off sometimes, which is cool. Adds a little spice to my day. And but I try to tell it as it is, and you can't paint garbage as treasure. If you're playing like trash, you gotta say it. So I try to do that to the best of my ability, and still enjoy the games. Still enjoy the games. And I was very fortunate throughout my career. I played in Rose Bowls, played in the Rose Bowl, I played in the Holiday Bowl, I played in All-Star games, professional baseball, been around and did a lot of different things. The coolest sporting event that I've ever been a part of, the coolest by far, like I said, Monday Night Football, all that other playoffs and all that stuff, was the wild card game of the Royals last year. How cool was that? Man, and I'm a baseball guy. I love baseball. And so that's when I actually became a fan, because as a pro athlete or an ex-pro athlete, you never really feel like you can be a fan, because sometimes you're at games and people know who you are, they recognize you, and you're there as Danan Hughes, or you're there as former chief, and you never really just get to settle into fandom. And being that I came here in '93, the Royals were never really worth being fans brand new to. I mean, if you grew up with them, yeah, you're stuck. But being a new person to the area is never like, wow, the Royals, I want to be a part of that. So the last year was the first year, and then going to that wild card game was incredible. By far the biggest highlight I ever had in my career. So I've been blessed to be around Kansas City, blessed to be a part of it, married, 5 kids, 3 grandkids, and not a dull moment in my house. There's always something going on. My son was playing college basketball at Truman State. Was up there last night, got home at 2 in the morning. My daughter's playing volleyball at Central Methodist. So I go up there from time to time and watch her play, and then I got the kids and grandkids, the rest of them here. So I'm very fortunate, made Kansas City my home. We're all around, we live in Lee Summit, but we get up to North Kansas City all the time with the Zona Rosa and the Improv and everything else that's going on up here. So it's been awesome to be a part of and be a second home for me. And obviously with the Chiefs and being around and obviously winning, that's pretty cool as well. So that's a little bit about me and how a lot of great stories that I endured. People always ask me, do I miss football? I don't miss the action on the field. I miss the camaraderie and stuff in the locker room, because we had a lot of characters during those years. And back then you didn't have social media, so you didn't really get a chance to know the players. We had radio shows, and that's pretty much how people knew Grunhard and myself and DT and those guys and Neil when they had radio shows, but you didn't really get to know the inside scoop. So I knew that stuff. I knew when guys would, the locker room, many people in here may know, that's like a sacred place that everything goes. There's nothing taboo. So if you get arrested, community might, you'll be all right. The locker room, you idiot, what the heck are you doing? So it's always like that, even in the pros, even worse. Guys coming out with clothing lines, and we had one guy had a clothing line in one pocket fit backwards, the other pocket fit forward. He didn't have a good tailor, so we messed with him for like 2 years. So all that different stuff. One of the coolest experiences I had was obviously coming in with Joe Montana. The first meeting we had for that season, 1993 season, everybody's kind of walking on eggshells. It's Joe Montana, which I thought I was today. I try to tell people that, nobody believes it. But, and we go into the meeting, everybody's kind of, this is Joe. Don't screw up, don't mess around. We don't know how he is, if he's really serious or he's cool. And he lights a stink bomb, and we have to evacuate him under his seat. Everybody evacuates. So now that was kind of like, let all the air out of the room. Everybody kind of exhaled. It was okay. Now he's one of us. We know he's a football player. He's not Joe Montana like everybody thinks. It was a great, calm, always calm in the huddle. Rich Gannon was the same way. Rich would come in, when he had to relieve Elvis Grbac, he'd come in and he'd talk Ebonics, or he'd say something crazy in the huddle. We're like, you're a quarterback, what are you doing? It's like, 3 minutes left in the game. It's like, oh, I got this dog. We got those type of things that you don't get a chance to see nowadays. You hear, you have people mic'd up, and you might hear a lot of that stuff. But back then, especially in this town, where the fever for the Chiefs was incredible, and the fandom is amazing, and we love it all. There's a lot of those little intricacies that nobody really knows. So it was definitely a blessing for me to be a part of, and meetings and travel. I always carry, and I should have brought it up here, I carry my old playbook, my last playbook from when I was with the Chiefs. I keep it in my trunk. A lot of times I'm with kids. I coached baseball for 9 years, and So I give it to the kid, and basically trying to show the attention to detail, what goes into a football game. And our binders were that thick, and every week we had to open up the binder, take everything out, throw it in a shredder, and then they give us a whole nother ream of paper with all of our plays and everything that we have to do for that week, from the itinerary to where you were supposed to be every 5 minutes, meetings, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot more, just like in the production phase with here, and what the young lady was talking about, what goes on behind the scenes that a lot of us viewers don't, kind of take for granted. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes in football, especially pro football. In college, I had the same playbook for 4 years. I was 5 years. I was a redshirt, and then 4 years after that. So I didn't have to look at it very much after the second year. In the pros, every single week, it looks like it might be the same on TV, but every single week the plays are different. The formations are different. The calls are different. The signals are different. The audibles are different. The cadence is different. The setup, the alignment, all those different things. The depth chart is different. People always talk about my offensive coordinator or my wide receiver coach who became offensive coordinator, Al Saunders, said the NFL is the world's longest job interview because there is no guaranteed contracts. And I would literally have to go into the locker room, and the first thing I would do is look up at my locker to see if my nameplate was there. Every single day. And then you look down and see if your equipment was in there. And then that's where you kind of say, okay, I got a job for another day. And you go about the business. So it's definitely cutthroat. It's definitely unique. I wouldn't change it for the world. I sustained a lot of different injuries and very fortunate because there's a lot of guys that I played with that are worse off than me. So I've been truly blessed, but it's been an amazing experience being associated with the NFL, particularly the Chiefs, and being in this town. So I get an opportunity to share and talk a lot. I don't consider myself a professional speaker, I guess. So having said that, I like to take on questions because I think people always have questions that might tap into something that I wouldn't necessarily get into in 40 minutes or so. So any questions that you all have? Yes. Yeah.
We went back there, and I don't remember if San Francisco came here, but it was in San Francisco. It was a Monday night game. And it's like huge hype around it. It was the first time Montana was facing, and it was like
it was '94. It was the second game. It was the first home game. It wasn't it wasn't a Monday. I don't think it was a Monday night game. It was the first home game. It was a Sunday afternoon. Steve Young versus Joe Montana, and we beat the crap out of them. We beat them bad that day. And I know Joe and Steve had a little, they didn't have the harmonious relationship. And it's interesting because you think back and you look back now at Joe Montana was the coolest person to ever be around. But he would have a rule that he would not sign autographs when he was out with his family. So if you, as a general fan that loves Joe Montana, would see him in the mall, Oak Park Mall or something, he wouldn't sign an autograph, he'd think he's a jerk. The nicest guy ever, he just had that one rule because he was always Joe Montana and he could never just be dad. But, so it's interesting when you know the person that you think back and say, man, how did you not, the coolest person talking about John Candy in the huddle during the 2-minute drill in the Super Bowl and talking to us about cheerleaders during timeouts and all this stuff. How are you that person that doesn't get along with Steve Young? But then now you look fast forward 20 years and you hear the same things about Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And you just kind of hear about maybe it's something great people see the next great person that might overshadow them, so then there's an automatic tension. But yeah, it was definitely talked about that week that we weren't, especially not going to let Steve Young and Jerry Rice and those guys come in to our house and win. And I remember it like yesterday. It was a hot day, really hot day, and they had no chance. They were down 14-0 before the kickoff. They didn't even realize it.
I used to be in education and taught secondary.
Me too.
And taught at the secondary level, and all the kids that play football think they're going to go pro, and you're a perfect example of someone who has transitioned from who's lived the dream in a sense, and transitioned to successful family life, successful career in business. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Well, I think my goal in life growing up, I was a city kid, never saw any pro athletes, didn't know what it meant to be a pro athlete, didn't even know how to get there. So I kind of did things on kind of on the go. You know, just on my own. We didn't have trainers. We didn't have specialized trainers. We didn't have a weight room. Anybody ever see the movie Wildcats? Remember Wildcats? Am I that old? Goldie Hawn as the coach of Wildcats. That was like my high school. We were like that. Everything about that movie, you know, undisciplined, but really good athletes, and we would just go out and play. I remember, you know, we would have stories where we would tell our coaches, you know, our coaches one day came to practice to start running. And we said, how long? And which you know, obviously people know you don't ever ask a coach how long. And we said, how long? And we were dead serious, how long? He said, until I say stop. So we proceeded to run to the locker room. And we told everybody, all the freshmen, sophomores, if you don't come with us, you will regret it. And we all, undisciplined group, went to the locker room and made the coaches come get us. And when the coaches came out there, it was like, Coach, we don't roll like that. You got to tell us how we'll run. Well, you got to tell us 5 laps, 10 laps. It's not that kind of party. So I'm not proud of that. It's funny now that I'm a grown up with kids and I've coached. I can't imagine somebody that think my head would spin around. The kid would tell me that, but it just goes to show you the different times. But what I would tell kids is that if you have a dream, and I didn't even have a dream of playing, I just wanted to play hard. You know what my goal was growing up was to have my name in the newspaper and be picked first in pickup games. That's all I had to shoot for. So everything about my reputation in my city. So that nobody would ever think I was soft, nobody would ever think I was a punk. So whenever there's a pickup baseball, basketball, football game, Danan was picked first. So that was my goal growing up. And then to be able to open the newspaper and see my name in headlines. That was it. And that kind of morphed itself into, wow, this junior in high school, in Bayonne High School, is a pretty good athlete. And you start getting all these letters, and I'm like, I never even heard of University of Iowa. Never heard of Nebraska and all these places. And then it kind of took a life of its own. So the message I would send to kids is, if you have that dream, which I did, 100% go after it. And don't let anybody tell you different. There's the guys like Wes Welker, Julia Edelman, and Tom Brady's, and all these different guys that rose to stardom by being overlooked, but staying grinding. My biggest personal highlight in my life is that I coached 9 years of baseball, and I coached kids from 9 years old, roughly the same amount of kids. If you lose 1, 2, gain a few, 20 years. From 9 years old through high school. The last 4 years, my son didn't even play on the team, but I had made a commitment that I wanted to see these group of kids through high school, and I wanted to do everything possible so they have an opportunity at the next level. 100% of them are either in college or playing pro baseball right now. That's better than anything I ever accomplished, all Big Ten, and it kind of gives me goosebumps thinking about it. But the message that I push to them is grind, work. Hard work pays off. I do Twitter, and kids, I'll see kids that I either coached against or coach them, and I'll just end it with a hashtag HWPO. Hard work pays off. And just keep grinding. Don't worry about the stuff you can't control. Don't get caught up in, I'm not playing enough, I need to switch schools, switch teams, all this different shuffle. And we see this generation, I feel like an old man, this generation. But this generation, lack of satisfaction or lack of attention to grinding and getting better and controlling what you can control. I think that's something that's gone downhill. I think part of it is because of AAU and different things like that, where kids are on teams that there's a basketball team and there's only 7 players, so every kid plays. So when that kid goes to college and now they're the 12th player, they don't know how to adjust. So there's different aspects of those things, and I coached a 12-man baseball team where everybody played. But I think I kind of imparted to them that there wasn't nothing automatic, and I would take kids out, and I would sit them, and I would sit with their parents, and I would keep everybody accountable and communicate, because it's a team effort. And you have to have some support staff. And I was raised by a village. I was raised by, my parents are alive, they're together. I'm raised in a 2-parent home. But I was raised by my city. I got disciplined by people, neighbors, and down the street, and I remember having a hooky party. Anybody remember hooky parties? Did you ever call hooky parties when you didn't go to school that day and you had like people at your house? We call that hooky. Played hooky. And you remember that? Thank you. And I remember the truant officer. Remember like truant officers, like the little rascals, the truant officer? He took pictures of us hanging out at my house and gave them to my grandmother who he worked with. So I was like automatically in trouble because of the neighborhood and the community, disciplined me, and I think we've lost that a lot in our society. But I would just encourage kids. I would give them realistic understanding, and I would hold them accountable. I think there's times where the kids are not accountable, held truly accountable, and that's what I would want them, and I would communicate to their inner circle or supportive staff. Yes?
So I don't necessarily need asking for the blow-by-blow, play-by-play, but first day at training camp,
Yeah.
up against Dale Carter, and you got in the fight with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk me through I'm not asking for the play-by-play, but
Well, here's
what led up to that, and what was the reaction from?
So here's the deal. I was a very prideful person, and people don't know. Okay, so football. Let's just talk about the football mindset. In college, in high school, if you are a football player, any football players or former football players here? All right. It consumed your day. Friday consumed your day. You were pretty much worthless in class on Fridays. College, it was pretty much it consumed your Saturday. And for me, I was a guy, I didn't need a pregame speech. I didn't need the coach to tell me anything. From the time I woke up, I was in a zone. It was a different zone. And then when the game came in college, it took so much energy out of me all day long. From 8 a.m. when I woke up, didn't need an alarm clock. It's time to go. Got this itinerary. We got to be at these meetings, pregame meal, bus ride, locker room, tape job. I was very superstitious, so everything I did was meticulous and organized. And I would have that same type of height of energy and anger. I felt like all day long. You said something about my mama, you kicked my dog, you spit on me, and I hate you. And I can't wait to get to you. And whether it was Michigan or University of I don't know, and when you get to the pros, it's different. And the difference is that I realized, and I kind of equated to, is a light switch mentality. That you could literally go in a locker room in the Chiefs or back then, and guys would be playing dominoes, shooting craps, playing cards, talking trash, listening to music, dancing, singing. We had one guy that would throw up purposely before every game. And he actually, it was weird, but it was funny. He was an agnostic, so he didn't believe in God, so he would do it while we were praying. So all you would hear would be like, "Our Father who art in heaven," and you'd hear the guy in the bathroom. It's always kind of nasty, but it's funny to look back. And but then you go from sitting there and talking and mixing and mingling and talking about what you're going to do after the game and what family you have in town, and then it's like the strength coach says 5 minutes, and it's like boom. And then what goes on about the communication, like I have with Rich and Ryan and some of you guys here, it goes from blah, yeah. Boom. Time to roll. That's it. And my kids, I always mess with them because I do that in front of them with their kids, with their friends, and they always get embarrassed. I can turn, I can still have it where I can turn like that, and I can think about all the things that came in my mind during that game, or during that season, or during that career. Whereas like, he's trying to take something from me. He's trying to hurt one of my teammates. I gotta make that block because he can't hit Marcus. I gotta make this catch. People say, well, how do you, when you know you're going to get hurt? I said, that's why God made doctors. That's why he made ice and he made doctors. I got to make the catch. Touch my hand, it should be caught. I'll deal with the other stuff afterwards. And if I don't do it, I'm hurting these other 50 guys. And it's kind of that, it's really literally like that. 5-minute call, and it's like everything stops, the room gets silent, you get a few guys that are screaming and yelling, you still got the guy throwing up, and then it's time to turn it on. And you really take it personal, you really believe. The best coaches to me are brainwashers. They brainwash you into believing something that you may not even think you could do. I used to like the Raiders when I grew up. And it took all of like half of a season under Marty Schottenheimer for me to hate the Raiders. Everything was F the Raiders every week, every single season, and now I can't stand the Raiders. They brainwashed me, took away my joy. And but it's that type of mindset. So going on to the football field to answer your question about Dale Carter, it was like, you know, yeah, I'm supposed to be this rookie and supposed to be 7th round pick, and I'm supposed to feel my way through and respect my elders and blah blah blah. But he just did something that brought me into a zone that, okay, you just insulted my manhood, you just tried to take something from me, and it's on. And I used to fight every game. I'm glad I'm not like that anymore. I'm glad thankfully, there's no record, no illegal record of me being like that. And I knew how to turn it on the field, and I knew how to turn it off the field, and guys don't know how to balance that. But it was really personal to me. So when he did that, he jammed me or pushed me extra, like triggered something on the field. So even going back, so tying it to last weekend, the Chiefs played a great game against the Denver Broncos, and Marcus Peters gets penalty, pushing Demaryius Thomas. Demaryius pushed him first, and he gets the penalty, and he's talking trash. And I immediately tweeted, I said, those are the type of penalties I can accept. Because there's a level, there's always trash talking that's going on the field. There's guys that really dig deep into trash talk too. They talk about, you know, your kid and how he didn't make the team in high school and how he's just like you, and your girlfriend, she was, you know, sleeping with this other guy, and how can you be with him? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on the field. And, you know, you just have to try to block it out, but then at some point it's like, all right, now it's personal. You know, and things don't become real until they become personal in all of our lives. And sometimes that personal can be on the 20-yard line in the middle of a football game. So yeah, there's some dumb penalties, but there are also times where, to me, they're justified based on the game, not necessarily based on how they should act. So.
What's your advice to them as far as balancing schoolwork and making decent grades, so you have something to do after football and football? Well,
I always tell the kids, and I preach to them from they were 9 years old, and now they're all sophomores in college turning 20, is that no matter how long your football or baseball career is, it's not going to be as long as life and your life off the field. So understand that from the beginning. I also used to, as a coach, held my parents accountable. Tell me when Johnny or Grayson or Monte or whomever is not doing something in school, and I'll help you handle it. I'll handle it here, you handle it there, we'll tag team, and he'll be able to be a better person for it. I also preach as far as sports. Sports is a microcosm of life lessons. And there are things that you learn on the field and through the grind that will help you be a better man, be a better person, be a better father. So I try to encompass all that. So that's kind of the message that I would share to kids, and still to this day, is that there's a balance, but then there's a priority list. And being a student is higher than being a student athlete or being an athlete or any of the responsibilities. Now, that's challenging because a lot of your day is consumed with sports. And in college, let's be real, you're really athlete students. That's the demand. Back when I went to school, they didn't have time limits like they do now in college. They have 20-hour-a-week time limits. In college, they didn't have time. We were in meetings until midnight. My offensive coordinator was Bill Snyder, and he was notorious. I remember I played with Peter Marciano, Rocky Marciano's nephew. Peter Marciano was a crazy Boston dude, small, just like Rocky. You know, he'd run through that wall, and he was a punt returner, never fair caught the ball, always took big hits, didn't care, and he was a knucklehead too. He's funny, but he was a knucklehead. And he, you know, the old school where you rewound video when you're watching film and you press the rewind and watching plays over and over. Bill Snyder rewound one play 256 times. one play. He sat there, we were so bored in the meeting, Peter got a pen and started writing little marks on his paper every time Bill pressed the rewind button. He counted 256 times. So that attention to detail is obviously a part of the game of football, but it just tells you a small part of the commitment, time commitment, and the energy. So your athlete students, what kept me sane and kept me out of trouble, kept me eligible, kept me moving towards playing professional sports, is I played both sports in college. I was a person that did not need idle time, and especially at 19, 20 years old. I went to college as a 17-year-old. And so it was, people always ask me, how tough was it to play 2 sports in college? It was actually not that tough because it's something I did my whole life leading up to college, and it's something that kept me accountable all year long. Most of the problems that you see with athletes is during the off season, when they have idle time. So I didn't have the idle time, so I was able to stay the course. Yes, sir.
So on the Grbac, the statute of limitations is run now, so where do you stand on that, the year that Gannon had replaced him from injury and then Grbac back to the playoffs? And second, are you party to any of the concussion legal actions against the NFL or that, or what's your take on that?
Great questions. One, everybody and their mother knew that Rich Gannon should have been started. We had to toe the line, the corporate line, and say, you know, the politically correct answers, but Rich should have been starting, and we know this to this day, and probably Elvis in the back of his mind knows that to this day. If he had, we would have went to the Super Bowl.
Do you think Marty would say that now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think it was a Marty decision. It was a Carl decision. And you have to think of it from a business perspective. They just paid $18 million to get Elvis Grbac. If he did not start that game and Rich would have won, that would have been a wasted $18 million because you could never put him back as a starter. So there was a business aspect that I think a lot of players and people don't realize that comes into play. But yeah, Rich should have definitely started that game. There's no way you should have not started him outside of the business side, and Carl pulled that trigger. And although everybody's documented the tension between Carl and Marty, I think that was probably what pushed it over, especially with Marty's history of not making it to the big game, maybe seeing that window close that time without having any real choice in it. And then your second question about the concussions. I've sustained somewhere between 14 and 18 concussions in my career. One of the last hits I took, I lost all feeling in my body. And just to kind of tell you how much of a knucklehead I was, the first thought I thought of laying on the carpet at the Superdome in New Orleans was, how am I going to finish this game? So stupid. I was dumb. But funny dumb. But so I lost all feeling. Obviously, my feeling came back about a minute later or so. And I was able to fool the doctors, make them think that I was okay, that I just hurt my shoulder, and I got some smelling salts and an ice bag and some Tylenol, and I went back and played the rest of the game. I believe, for me, as far as the concussion situation with the NFL, I answer for myself. I understand where other guys' positions are. I have not been able to be at peace with associating my name to it yet. And part of the reason is, although I recognize there could be some effects that will come down in the future, I can't justify putting myself in line with other guys who are currently feeling it because I think I might. Now, some people would say that's dumb. You know, you never know. We have all these science, reports and all that it's gonna happen. But I guess for me, my peace of mind and my faith, I just can't do it right now as of November 19, 2015. So I'm not on any of the lists. I have been a part of the conversations and the conference calls and the meetings and so on and getting that information, but I just don't. And I think there's a lot of guys that are there for the money grab, and then there are some justifiable ones, and unfortunately the money grab people are going to overshadow the justifiable cases. But for me personally, I'm not in it. I'm stockpiling the information, but I just don't feel at peace that I deserve to be on that list now. Now my wife, she might say something different because I get on her nerves sometimes. Yes.
Do you have any stories that you could share about playing for Marty Schottenheimer? Two questions, I guess. You thought he was such. Would you see at that time maybe that he would become one of the best, if not the best?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I tell this story. I was with Bill for one semester, my freshman year, true season. So it was a season, and he got hired by K-State in January after the bowl game. And I learned more in that one season than I did my whole rest of my career about attention to detail, the game of football, offense, schemes, positioning, strategies, all. And I'm a redshirt, so I'm not even on the field. And you can tell by what he's done at K-State. He did at Iowa. You're taking guys that ran 4.6s, 4.7s. You're making them all-Americans. You've put them in that's the epitome of coaching, is that you put in guys with marginal to average talent in position to be successful on a football field with other five-star guys. So I knew that about Coach Snyder. Coach Snyder, stories about him, he would stop us mid-route, stop the play. And he always, I don't know if you ever watch him, he always sucks his teeth to this day. Danan, get back, do it again. Stepped in the bucket, 4th step, it's supposed to be 5 steps, get back. And that was every single day. The routes were 3 steps, there were 5 steps, they weren't 5 yards, they weren't 10 yards, it didn't matter where the sticks were. It was this kind of scheme, this is why we do it. You line up on the numbers, you line up on the inside edge of the numbers, you line up on the outside edge of the numbers. These plays, you do this, and that's how it was repetitive all day long. So I learned that, and consequently what that did is help me in my preparation against other teams. I don't think I took a big hit, a couple of big hits in college and the pros, but nothing that decapitated me because I knew where I was supposed to be and where I was supposed to be there. And the quarterback knew the same. We were on the same page. I think that, to me, you can have speed, you can have athleticism, but the biggest talent is I know how to be where I'm supposed to be, and I know how to be in sync with my quarterback. That's my job as a receiver, and I learned it from those guys. So Coach Snyder he would drill you about it. He would stop you. You'd be in one-on-one routes, and he'd stop. He'd blow the whistle. He'd be back behind the defense watching you, and he'd blow the whistle. Don't throw the ball. Tell the quarterback, don't throw the ball. Stop. And the quarterback would be ready to throw it. He'd stop. He said, Danan, you went 5 steps. You're supposed to go 6. Get back. Do it again. And that's how it was. Coach, as far as Marty was great because you felt his passion. He was able to infuse his passion of the game onto you and make you believe. I never played special teams. I never ran into a wedge. I never caught a punt. But he would be able to infuse the passion and help you see the vision to the point where, okay, I can do whatever you just told me to do. Whatever you want me to do, I can do. And it's unfortunate that he always has that label of losing the big one because the fumble was not his fault. The drive, that's the player's fault. You got to make a stop. If you want to blame him for the Elvis Gannon thing because he was the head coach, I personally think that was a more upper office decision. He's getting a bad shake at the stick. He's a great coach and done a lot of great things. So it was awesome to play for them. Both of them. I played for a Hall of Famer in Hayden Fry, a Hall of Famer in Bill Snyder. My college baseball coach is in the Hall of Fame, Dwayne Banks. I got Marty Schottenheimer should be in the Hall of Fame. So I've been very blessed to be taught the game the right way and being held accountable the right way.
So outside of your parents, who were your mentors outside of sports?
Outside of sports, I had uncles. I had I had uncles. I just had the community that I know was watching me. I guess it's a feel that there's accountability. Even when I go back home now, I know I can't screw up. I know that there's people that look at me, even though it's 20 years later, that I can't be a certain way. I can't let my guard down. I can't do certain things. So to me, there was always an accountability. I am extremely fond of my hometown. I feel like I'm a product of my hometown. I'm extremely proud. If I was ever to start on Monday Night Football, I would probably, although I love Iowa, I would probably name Bayonne High School. And everything I tried to do was, my parents, back then, the games weren't always, obviously you have DirecTV or the NFL package, you can watch every game, and college package, you can watch every game. You can find it no matter what. Back then, you couldn't. And if you're on the East Coast, you didn't necessarily see Iowa games. So my parents would have to go down to a sports bar and hope that they would turn the game on. So my mentality was, the biggest dream that I wish I could have had was to be a fly on the wall in the sports bar, because that's where all my homeboys grew up. That's where the police officers and the firemen that I grew up with that are now those policemen and chiefs, and the guys I played high school with. And you know, my thought, not to get emotional or anything like that, but my thought was, do they know that I'm a product of them? Do they see them in me? Am I making them proud? So if that's the mindset I had, that's what kind of propelled me. My helmet in Iowa, if you ever looked on Google and saw me in my uniform, there was 2 pieces of tape on a black face mask, 2 pieces of white tape, and inside the white tape, nobody saw, was written in marker, Mom and Dad. And I only saw it. So every time I had my head down and I was tired, I just see those names and it was like, gotta roll, gotta go. So, I just kind of felt like there was an onus on me to represent the right way and be accountable and not shy away from it. So I can stand up here and I can talk wherever, and I'm cool with it because I feel like, because my goals were that, they weren't to be an all-star or be an all-pro. It was just to represent the right way.
Thank you so much. That was way more than I ever anticipated we'd have. Great presentation. I had a whole bunch of announcements, but I'm not going to do that. Just one. No luncheon in December. We got something better. It's December 3rd, Thursday night, across the street at Black on Burlington, called The Big Event. Food from at least a dozen North Kansas City restaurants, and a great auction. And hope that if you haven't already made plans, you will. And I believe you all are available. If any of you would like to see a tour of their facility, just join them here. If you need to leave, go the way you came. But they will be more than happy to give you a tour. Thanks a lot for being here.